As the prophet of esports, I rely on trustworthy and meaningful data every day. Data from our research partner, YouGov, offers the most complete view of esports fans and gamers in the world, providing context to who they are, what they think, the brands they buy, and things they do. YouGov's connected insights and research services inform strategy at every level. If you're a team, a brand, agency, or rights holder, you should be talking with YouGov. Their partners measure and maximize ROI and are telling compelling stories with data. Visit yougov.com/gaming-esports to learn more. Okay, can we talk about Microsoft? Because Microsoft was in the news, and I thought this was an interesting article only because it felt, I don't know. You guys tell me how you feel about this article. The headline here, Microsoft is planning 3D metaverse apps for Xbox and gaming. And basically they have someone from Microsoft, including the CEO here, who's quoted saying, "You can absolutely expect us to do things in gaming. If you take Halo as a game, it is a metaverse. Minecraft is a metaverse, and so is Flight Sim. In some sense, they're 2D today, and the question is, can you now take that to a full 3D world? And we absolutely plan to do so." So Satya Nadella says they have plans to focus on gaming for the metaverse with Xbox. They also just announced, and maybe this changes your feelings, Microsoft Teams metaverse for meetings. Jeff, I already see you shaking your heads. So, Microsoft has dabbled with some VR in the past. They've dabbled with some AR in the past. They had HoloLens. Satya is now coming out and saying, hey, we're basically already doing metaverse stuff and we're going to do more of it. I'm paraphrasing. Knee-jerk reaction to Facebook here, guys, or you think genuine, well thought out strategy from Microsoft?
Well, that was a Freudian slip you just had saying Facebook. But it's, we talk about this now it's funny how quickly Metaverse has just become, I feel like we were a few months early about joking about how big of a buzzword it is. And now it's like, it's not even funny anymore, just how every company says they're creating a metaverse. On his first point about the games being metaverses, I sort of agree. I think there is no good definition of a metaverse. I think loosely, I agree with him. If you think of metaverse as like a virtual world that you kind of go in and it's immersive and you have a character, an avatar, and it kind of, you personalize that and you sort of spend time and money and socialize in a digital world. That's sort of how I think of metaverse. I know that's not the metaverse that we're sort of all shooting for down the line, but that's what I kind of the building blocks of when I define a metaverse, how I'm thinking about it today. With that definition, I do think that those are metaverses, which has kind of been something I've been pounding the drum on for a while, where I'm all of these games are sort of metaverses. GTA is a metaverse. These games are metaverses. But I think when you use that definition, it kind of does water it down a bit compared to sort of what people I think are expecting when they talk about metaverse. I sort of snickered when you talked about Microsoft Teams, just because Microsoft Teams sucks so much. And if there was one communication software app I would not want to be sort of living in their digital world, I think it would probably be Microsoft Teams. So
definitely judge people by their preferred choice of meeting platform.
I use Google Meets, so I'm not any better, but it's better than Microsoft Teams, I think.
It is better. Is anyone sort of think this was just pure, again, PR marketing stunt, or do you think we see a world? Because remember last week we talked about Microsoft and Satya being part of his comp being tied to Xbox Game Pass subscriptions, right? At what point do we see something metaverse related sort of being a metric that Satya is judged on, or ever, right? Fundamentally, do we think this is just marketing, or do we think there's genuine strategic kind of prioritization being pushed here?
I think the strategy is those conversations are now happening, right? Because if it was already happening, then there would be something substantive in that article. It's very knee-jerky That doesn't mean that there's not something in discussion, right, or being developed, but this isn't the 10,000 employee hire in a new facility and here's our rollout plan that we just saw. So maybe we're spoiled in that sense. To Jeff's point, the metaverse being created, it really could be any of these things, all of these things, whatever we envision. Microsoft is a great company to kind of throw its hat in the ring and kind of help define that. And it has the titles that will contribute to what that metaverse looks like. But I just, you read this and you're like, cool, okay, like, Nike's announcement was more substantive than this one, with their NFTs and their digital clothing, that their Nike's play for the metaverse I thought was much stronger than what we're reading here, which is funny because that's an apparel company and you would expect it to be reversed, right? With someone like Microsoft. So that's not to say we're not going to see something bigger and more detailed from Microsoft. I totally agree with you, Paul, that in terms of CEO compensation, that'll be a fair way to monitor performance and certain future milestones as this takes the forefront of the industry, for the next 10 plus years, foreseeable future. But what is it? Like, what are we talking? We're not talking about anything. This is like a nothing article. It's a filler.
Well, I want to read some of the comments here because I think some of them are quite poignant. One, he says, "I'm going to open the restaurant called Metaverse, only take NFT as a payment. Of course, the food will be virtual as well." Wani, this is genius. Don't give away these good ideas like this. You should have already done this. I don't know what you're waiting for. Chris says, "Took a pandemic to teach people how to use Zoom. Now we all have to plug into the metaverse. # learning curve." It'll be interesting to see if the pandemic can get us to that metaverse. Maybe it gets us all the way. And if you believe Microsoft's press release here, fundamentally this article, Teams is basically a metaverse. So we're already there. Matthew says this seems very Epic Games, a knee-jerk reaction to a big company with a half-assed attempt to go toe-to-toe with them. Matt, I agree completely. It's Microsoft, right? Like, it didn't have to be half-assed or knee-jerk or any of it. They have enough resources and, they have enough there that they could have made a real response. Matt says, "When did Tim Sweeney start working at Microsoft?" Robert's comment here I thought was very interesting because this is sort of what I was getting at. Microsoft have been a pioneer in the space for a while. Their holoportation team have been more endemic to metaverse than many newer technologies. WebUC-based Animojis does have foundation of tech interoperability. Do you agree that each of these moves are another step towards convergence? I'm going to answer this question. I want to put it to you guys, but also let me ask a tangential or related question here, which is Microsoft does have a lot of tech that they could have leaned on in an article like this, of which almost none was mentioned, right? Like the real stuff that they have been building or have built that could be metaverse related was not mentioned. Instead of, it was just like, well, we already have Halo and Teams. And so like, these are already metaverses, as opposed to saying, hey, we're investing millions of dollars more into, HoloLens and we'll see where that goes.